Hi there, everybody that's watching. This is Vanessa again from Through Our Eyes charity. And today I am joined by a wonderful young lady called Marie, who has bravely offered to share her personal journey with Marcus Gunn jaw winking syndrome. And so I'm just going to literally hand over to Marie to start off and just share her journey.
Sounds good. Thank you, Vanessa. So I'm Marie. I guess I can start from the very beginning when I was born and then tell a bit of my parents' side of things because of course, I don't remember. And then I'll maybe share my perspective. So I was born in 2002 in the countryside in France. And I only stayed 2 days in the hospital, I think. And I don't think the doctors really saw anything specific with my eyes that early, but my mom told me that at 4 months old, that's when the doctors really finally wrote something down and said, like, yeah, one of her eye really is a bit droopy and yeah, the pupil is a bit strange, but they didn't really pay too much attention to it. So when I was really, I think it was when I was 6 months old, she decided to go see some specialists to see if something was wrong. But they only really cared about the ptosis, so
Mm.
that's like the droopy eyelid. And my mom told them about like the jaw winking, and she thought it was a bit weird and funky, and she was a bit worried about that, but nobody really knew or like paid any attention to it, so she didn't really do that either. But she was sort of keeping an eye on it, I guess. And then so I grew up pretty normally. I had 10 out of 10 vision for most of my childhood. So I think she told me that most doctors really looked at the eyelid and tried to see if it was affecting my vision in any way, shape, or form. And for me, it was not affecting anything. So they really didn't like tell her to do anything. They just sort of were like wait and see what's going to happen. And then I think when I was 12 around that time I started getting glasses, but I had really really mild farsight, yeah, farsightedness.
Mm.
But it was really like nothing crazy. And then a bit after that age, I also started going to an orthoptist. So that's like, the eye exercises.
Hmm.
And I think it had nothing to do with mitosis or my Marcus Gunn. I think it had more to do with like one of my, like this eye was like starting to drift a little bit, maybe not like aligning very well. But I think I remember as a kid this helping me with my lactosis, or I don't know, maybe I was more comfortable, I had more muscles. So that's what happened. And then my mom went around, look for other like eye doctors, and she went to ask around when I was around, yeah, maybe 10, that age, if there was anything else that could be done. But since like what the doctor focused on really was, is it affecting my vision? And
Mm.
since it was not really, they just said, it's really about like the visual and if you want her to have like plastic surgery. And I think at that time, since she's a hairdresser, she knows a lot of people. And I think she saw a young kid who had, I don't think he had ptosis, but I think he had something similar to the eyelid. And the surgery really didn't go very well for him. So she thought, we'll wait and maybe the technology will get better and wait and see. She didn't want to rush it because she thought that plastic surgery is very personal, and I think she didn't want to take the responsibility to sort of scar my face.
Mm.
So she didn't really take this decision at that time. But I do remember when I was a kid, she would ask me like every few years, like, bring the topic up, like, oh, like, would you ever want to get surgery? And
Hmm.
I don't think I responded in any way, shape, or form. And I think also like when something would change, like I remember when I was in maybe primary school or junior high school, I told my mom I didn't want to eat it in school anymore. I was like in my teenage years. And she was wondering, is it perhaps because somebody is like bullying me or like teasing me? And it was not. And so she did ask me, like all throughout my childhood, is it like bothering me? Or I guess she was waiting for me to sort of initiate the thing and maybe ask like more about it, but I never really did.
Mm,
Uh, but from my perspective, I only knew that this was anything particular when I saw the Facebook group.
mm,
And I didn't even know the name of my condition.
mm,
But I guess if I can, maybe it would be interesting for me to talk about like my personal feelings about
mm.
like
Yeah.
how I feel more than because I don't really know much. When I was a kid, I didn't really care about it. But
Mm,
I guess okay, let's see if I can remember. I guess I only figured out that something was different when I was in primary school, maybe.
mm,
Some kid asked me like, "Oh, like what's up with your eye? Like what is this?" And I was a bit startled and I was like, "I don't
mm.
know, I was born with it. Nothing special about it, nothing particular."
Mm,
Um, but I think when I grew up, it was never really a topic, even among my family members.
mm,
Like in a way, it was sort of like it's not really taboo, but it was like there was no name for it, so you can really like
mm,
talk about it. And so when I grew up, I also, I guess, adopted this sort of perspective to other kids because
mm,
kids are very curious. Like they were asking me, like anytime I would meet new kids, especially in primary school, they would ask me like, "So what is this? What is your eye doing?" And when I was eating, they'd be like, "Oh, like why is your eye doing this?" And I had no idea, but I was like, I don't know.
mm,
And sometimes I would make up like very crazy stories. I would be like, "Yeah, I'm
mm.
just fighting," and then
Yeah.
I was just having fun with it because I had no idea what I could tell. And I
Mm,
guess when I started going to junior high school, so it's when you're like after 12,
mm,
it's when it became a bit more of a topic for me because
mm.
it's when you're like entering your teenage years and your appearance is really important. So like I think I can vividly remember the few times kids have asked me about it, but unlike a disability, like having, I only remember I have this difference when people tell me about it. Like
Yeah.
most days I don't even think about
Notice.
it. Like when I'm eating, I don't even
Mm,
see it.
mm, mm,
It's so I guess like when they asked me about it when I was in junior high school, I guess I was a bit like, I guess it's something. I don't know if it's
mm.
positive or negative, but I guess I was a bit like, okay, interesting. But then I was really into fashion when I was a teen, and I really like my mom's hairdresser, so I had like crazy colors in my hair. So I guess I didn't really care about like standing out.
Yeah, you
So
were you were confident.
yeah, I guess so, or at least like I like this. I liked it. I guess
Yeah,
it's sort of a personality thing, maybe some people they're
yeah,
not really into that. So I really played with how I looked.
yeah.
And so I was not really a topic, I guess, except when I was trying to do my makeup. But I guess my insecurities when I was a teen was more my weight. That was something I was like, feel very insecure about, like when I go to swim and like with all the other kids.
Mm,
But it's so interesting when I look back, like my eyes could have been my biggest insecurity. Like some people, they have very tiny, their nose is a bit bigger than other people, and they really
mm,
feel like it's a problem. But I don't know why it was never the
mm,
main issue in my teen years. I don't know, it was never really an issue. And then so after I finished junior high school, I went to senior high school and then I changed schools.
mm,
And so new people, so they started
mm,
asking again about my eye. And I guess at that time I was more confident.
mm,
So, I feel like even when I was a kid, like since there was nothing more to it for me, I guess when I told them, oh, I was born with it, and I was just like, sort of
mm,
like, this is not much. Other kids would just take it like the same. They were like, I guess it's not that big of a deal if you don't make
mm,
it a big deal. Because
mm,
I feel like the bullies in my school, they would really look at like what makes people feel uncomfortable.
mm,
Like they would try to, I don't know, they see your weaknesses. And so I
mm.
guess this was not a topic for me. I guess they were like, I guess you're not the target for me. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
that
that
is
was
so
really,
smart.
yeah, I was really fortunate. I think, of course, I don't think I would have it would be the same if, I had been bullied or had some like really difficult experience, but I really didn't have much
Yeah.
experience. I think I was so lucky to be born in a place where people didn't really care too much about it because kids can be mean. So I guess I was just really lucky to be there. And then, so I moved schools when I was in senior high school, and then I got a scholarship to study 1 year in Taiwan
Hmm.
uh, during senior high school. And that's, I guess, the second big time where my eye became a problem because when I was there, in this, I mean, in the classroom I was in particular, they really like idolize Europeans, and you have this idea of French people, and I really wanted, to live up to their expectations. And I was like, I want to be like the best French person you've ever met, and I want to like live all the stereotypes, and I want to be as cool as you imagine me to be. But I felt like I was like, okay, I have blue eyes, so that's a positive, but I have a really funky eye, so I guess that's not very nice. So I guess I was really insecure about it, but they didn't really say anything about it. I guess it was just me like projecting, my own assumptions and like, I don't know, imagination onto it. But I guess it was a sign that for me, it was still something. Like I cared how people saw me, and I still felt like it was not the norm to have an eye like that.
Mm.
So I guess that was the second time. But then people were so nice, and I had such a
Mm.
great time, and I made so many
Mm.
good friends that I think, it disappeared really quickly. So I'm so grateful for that. And then I came back home. I finished senior high school, and then I did 1 year of university close to Paris. And then I decided that's not what I want to do. And I moved to Sweden
Mm.
for 3 years to study my bachelor's in international relations. And I guess my time in Sweden was the time where I felt even more confident because I got a job next to my study working for a government agency called the Swedish Institute. And basically, they
Mm.
work to promote Sweden abroad.
Mm.
And my job was sort of like to be on social media. So my job was really to show my face and like share like how it is living in Sweden and do webinars and everything like that. And so
Mm.
I guess I had a lot of good qualities like in my applications, and I had a lot of skills that they were looking for. But I think they also really meant to like broadcast different types of people. So I guess in that sense, it really was an advantage. And it really made me more comfortable with myself because I was showing myself so much, and nobody ever said anything,
Mm.
or I never had any like negative comments. So I worked there for 2 years. The first year I was mostly working on Instagram, and then the second year, I was working on Chinese social media because I could speak Mandarin, right? And
Wow.
and again, like I was projecting, I was like, oh my God, maybe in Asia, their beauty standards are so strict, and I look like so different. Like, am I gonna, I don't know. I was imagining all sorts of things, like maybe they would think I'm just a terrible person because I look so strange and I'm not interesting. But of course, reality is different. And it turns out, people were so nice, and
Mm.
they really liked what I created. And I don't know, it was just so heartwarming for me at that time. It gave me so much confidence.
Mm.
So I guess that was a big point for me. And now I guess, I'm not totally close to surgery. I considered it many times, now that I've learned that even Marcus Gunn can be fixed through surgery, I was like, this is super cool. Uh, and maybe in my life I will have surgery. I don't know. But at the moment, I'm thinking it's big. Surgery is not like it's a big thing,
Mm.
So if I don't feel like it's super important for me right now, and I'm really happy with how I look, then I can just wait and see if it changes and if I have anything different. But I think I'm just so grateful that I have the choice to make
Mm.
this decision. I don't know if it was meant by my parents. I
Mm.
guess just like wait and see if I ever ask for it. But I feel so empowered, like that I can choose whether or not I want it, and if I want it now or later. I mean, I can always change my mind, right? So I feel like this is so cool, and it's so interesting to see like all the kinds of, like surgeries you can have. I always look in the Facebook group, like how everybody's like dealing with it and what kind of surgery they're getting. So, we'll see. But I feel like in many ways, if I can like say a little conclusion or summary,
Mm,
I feel like in many ways, having Marcus Gunn and apoptosis has impacted my life. But now that I look back on it, I feel like it's so positive. I feel like I wouldn't have never been this curious if I didn't have this condition because, I feel like when you're a kid and you look different, it makes you curious about other people. Like, okay, so
mhm.
I look different and yet I'm interested and I think I'm cool and I'm worth talking to. So probably other people are interesting, although they look a bit different than the norm. And I think it maybe influenced like my choice of studies because I chose international relations. So that's a bit like a politics.
Mm,
And I guess when I
mm,
was really young, I was so interested in like whose voices is being heard and who's speaking and
mm,
really being curious about like other people's experiences because I don't have a handicap, this is just a visual difference. And although I had
mm,
comments, I feel like it gave me sort of like a little peek into what other people could be experiencing. And
mm,
so it gave me so much like empathy and I don't know, curiosity about like, oh, I wonder how other people are living their lives and experiencing this
mm,
world. So yeah, I guess overall, right now in my life, I'm
mm.
okay.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really, really interesting and it's so refreshing, to hear that you've, you've been maybe it was helpful that you weren't told what it was called from like the beginning because you didn't label yourself, you didn't I have something. You didn't know what it was called until you were what, like 20 something or in your so, you were like, okay, like maybe this is just me, maybe this is just something unique to me, right? You didn't realize that it was a thing. Maybe you didn't even realize there was a lot of other people like, like you. You thought it was just unique to you. So, that probably helped like take the pressure off. Like, I have this thing, do I need to fix it? We can research it, we can fix it, this whole like rabbit hole that people
Mm,
go down when they have a name for something. It probably protected you in a way, from that, and your parents as well. And also, as you said, the fact that where you grew up, did you say it was you grew up in France, right?
yes.
Was it quite a like a small kind of community where everybody knew each other?
Yeah. Very rural.
Yeah. So that's probably like a quite more like a protective environment as well, because everybody knows your family, everybody knows you, everybody's more kind of sensitive and less maybe competitive and aggressive and things like that. So you were able to, yeah, be in sort of like a bubble where
Mm.
it wasn't everyone knew you, and so it was you were kind of protected. So that's really, really special. And you seem like, very, very confident person, very intelligent person. And yeah, just observing, kind of observing and then reacting, not being too emotionally invested. You seem quite like almost like detached from, almost kind of detached from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. I do think it was a good thing looking back, but I think in my teenage years, like I'm realizing now that when you don't have a name for it, it's also like you cannot really talk about it because all of
Yeah.
these like feelings, like I was feeling not that confident. I didn't really know how to say it. Like I feel like,
Mm,
like other people they don't really get me and I don't know how to explain it to them. So I guess in
mm,
many ways, I guess it's like you can never have like 100% positives. And I think I'm happy it turned out this way. But now that I have a name for it, I also feel so, so, so grateful because it's sort of like, you're letting the pressure off and you're like, oh my God, these people totally get me. And like, oh, this is so
mm,
comfortable to see that like I'm not being crazy and like all these feelings are not just me like I mean, it was me in my head, but
mm,
it's like difficult to communicate to other people when you don't really know like how to call it. But I do think that having no name for it, I mean, I was just if I'm being nonchalant about it, people will just they have
Mm,
no idea what it is either. So they're just gonna like mirror whatever I give them. So I think you're making
yeah.
good points.
And have you ever met or seen someone else with Marcus Gunn in like in reality, in real life?
No, I have never. That's why I thought it was my little thing. But I'm happy to see
Yeah.
that I'm not alone. But I do remember when I was a kid, when I would see somebody else with like something with their eye. It could be anything. I was
Mm.
like, I feel you. We're like brothers and sisters.
We're in the same, yeah, we're in the same boat. And have you sort of had much communication with anyone else that's in any of the Facebook groups in any way?
Yeah, I think I've talked a lot to some people. I've asked, especially there are older people with Marcus Gunn, and I've asked a lot of questions because I still feel like when I go to the eye doctor, I'm not really taken seriously. Like I don't want to get surgery, but I
Mm,
feel like I don't want to get I don't want my eyes to get lazy, for example.
mm,
I feel like right now my other eye is overworking and it was not really like taking
mhm,
over before. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's screen, I have no idea. But it was really tough when I went to the doctor and they were not really hearing my concern. And it sounded like they knew better than me what was up with my eye. And so when I had the chance to talk with other people in the group, it was so refreshing to hear their perspective and hear like sort of the things they tried out and how it turned out for them. But I mean,
mm.
all the people have been so nice to me, so I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I think out of Blepharophimosis, ptosis, and Marcus Gunn is the most rare.
Mm,
I don't even think there's a number of how many people are actually born. Have you heard a number of how many people are actually born with it?
really? Honestly, I have no idea. I tried looking up like some the research on it, but it's always like a paper about a single case. So I imagine they're
Yeah.
not that many cases.
Yeah, and it's not genetic.
Right.
It's completely random. Obviously, ptosis and blepharophimosis can be genetic, it can be passed
Mm.
down, but Marcus Gunn, I think in every single situation is just completely random.
And it's so I have no idea why it's often that Marcus Gunn is paired with ptosis, which
Mm,
is a bit strange because Marcus Gunn is like the nerves.
mm.
So I would really love to like know more about it, but I just have no idea.
Where to start? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
That's the thing. There's like barely any research or database or, sources or anything about about blepharophimosis or Marcus Gunn being the most rare. There's not, at least with blepharophimosis, that it says there's 1 in 50,000 babies born with it,
Right.
but we don't even have that number for Marcus Gunn, which is just like we have no idea how many people in the world have Marcus Gunn. I mean, maybe there's like 200, maybe there's 200,000, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Exactly. I mean, even if you look at
Amazing.
like I imagine you tried to look at like research and I feel like there's so much jargon and I'm trying to like read some papers and get to like
Mm,
learn more about it, but it's just so hard to get into it when you have no knowledge, like medical knowledge or like any
mm.
background whatsoever in this very specific field. So I feel like it really is a frustration, but I think it's super interesting and I will look into it further in the future.
Yeah, yeah. I think also, your positivity and obviously, you come across as a very light-hearted person, happy-go-lucky person. Um, I think that's, it just sort of represents the fact that whatever you're dealing with, whether it's ptosis or blepharophimosis or anything, your attitude towards it, is really going to steer the ship, isn't it? The more that you let it
Mhm.
bother you and bring you down, the more you focus on it, the more you think about it, the more you let it control your day to day, where you go or what you do or how confident you are, the worse the effect is going to be obviously on your life. So it's, you obviously shown that the less you think about it, the less you talk about it, the less you give it, the less attention you give it, the less it's gonna control or bother you.
I agree with that. And I feel like I mean, I can only be grateful to my parents because if you have like
Mm,
loving and supporting parents, you can really go through anything, I feel like. Because there are so many people with like so many other sort of differences. They're like smaller or bigger, but
mm,
you know, they get affected by it like much, much more. So I feel like it's really, I mean, I was set up really well in
yeah,
life, you know.
yeah,
So it's, I
yeah.
think it's luck. I think it's, I'm really like empathetic to the people who have like really a hard time with it and whose life it's
Mm,
being affected. Because I mean, I can understand if you've been bullied and you
mm,
know, you feel like people are looking weird at you and you've met some like strange people. I
mm.
mean, I can only understand that it's gonna bother you. So, you know, it depends on people. It depends on the support you get. So I guess I can just share my own perspective.
Yeah, yeah. If there's anybody watching this, at any point, because obviously this will go on YouTube and then, you can have parents watching it with, newborn babies that have Marcus Gunn, or you might have kids or adults watching it with Marcus Gunn. If they've got any questions or, if they have anything that they would want to discuss with you or anything like that, would you be happy for them to come through to me, obviously with the charity email or whatever, and then I can pass that on to you and would you be happy to like liaise with people about anything?
Absolutely, yes. I think I mean, of course, it's going to be a two-way street because I'm happy to hear about other people's experiences. So if I can share mine, you know, I would really love that.
That's amazing. Okay, my love. Well, yeah, I think you've just explained everything really, really well, really, really clearly. And yeah, it just sort of like covered everything that I was going to ask you about. Obviously your sight being the main thing. You covered off very early on that initially for the first few years of your life it didn't affect your eyesight at all. So there wasn't that kind of emergency, oh my goodness, we have to do something because, otherwise she's not going to be able to see properly or whatnot. And you've covered off, the bullying aspect of things and how you handled people that asked you questions and like how you think about it and stuff like that. So I think you've just explained everything really, really well. And you have very, very good communication skills, and you seem like a very, very, young, bright, intelligent person. And I just, thank you for, as I say, having the courage to share your story because, understandably, some people, rather sort of watch from the sidelines or, let other people step forward and kind of take the limelight. But you've had the courage. So I'm going to just stop the recording here. And as I said, anyone that wants to come forward and ask you anything or contact you directly, they can come through me and the charity.
Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you so much, my love, and have a good rest of your evening because it's evening time now. Really, really nice to meet you, Marie.
Yeah, it was so nice. Sorry again about being delayed, but I wish you the best.
No problem at all.